usually they put a little intro here, like music and shit. This is the 7th episode or 6th episode of the Hernan Game Industry Show. With us, we have the big and super cool dude, Monte Singman, Vice President of Business Development of iDreamsky, a guy who has like 30 years already of making of
34
years of game industry experience under his belt. He now works for the mobile market of China, so we were going to be talking a little bit of this. He worked in EA, in Nintendo, and
Capcom. Capcom, Sony,
there you
Accolade, and turned into Atari.
There you are, and you work on Street Fighter's puzzle game.
Yeah. Street Fighter. Yeah. I actually worked on Street Fighter proper, and then I also worked on Street Fighter, and it's called Super Puzzle Fighter.
Super Puzzle.
Super Puzzle Fighter Turbo.
Okay.
It's the one that's got the tiles falling down, and you have the cute version of the Street Fighters. Yeah, doing their.
What is the difference between the Turbo? I mean, there was a Street Fighter puzzle, not Turbo.
No.
So the name was always Street Fighter Puzzle Turbo.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Super Puzzle Fighter, something like that.
Okay.
Turbo. Yeah. They put a turbo in the end.
The turbo make it boosted, right? It's like turbo.
Yes.
And there you go. Cool. Well, Monty, how do you enter? I mean, of course, it's not something that people who is listening to this. I'm not sure. Maybe they can follow the same path. Maybe not, because you started in the 80s, right?
Yeah, in the 80s. Yes.
How did you started? How did you join the game industry?
So, I think it's destiny. So even before I saw electronic games, I was fascinated by how things work, especially toys. So I would take apart toys and try to put them back together. Obviously, when I was a kid, I was stupid and I couldn't put them back. So I destroyed a lot of toys. But as I started getting older, I could put them back and actually with enhancements and sometimes make them dangerous.
Yeah, that's always good. That's
Yes. So when video game came out, it was in the form of arcade games, coin-ops. And very few people know about this, but all of them were manufactured in Taiwan. It's like everything is made in China now, but back in the 70s and 80s, all the electronics were made in Taiwan. In fact, around the year
of the Made in Taiwan logo on my toys when I was a kid.
Yes, and even phones like Huawei and a lot of phones, the chipsets are still from Taiwan today. But back in the 80s, like 90% of the PCs were made in Taiwan. And anyway, the arcade boards were all made in Taiwan. Even so, they're designed in Japan, but they were made in Taiwan. So the streets were flooded with arcade machines when I was a kid, since I was 13. So I saw Pong, for the first time. And then I saw Space Invaders, black and white, and they put the colored, transparent sheet on it. That was the original Space Invaders. And I mastered that game. And then what was the next one? When Pac-Man came out, oh my God, it was colored. It was like black and white TV, and then you see color TV. And it's like, oh my God, like this is the future. Like this is so advanced. And the music got a lot better because on Pong, it was like, doo, doo, doo. But on Pac-Man, it was like synthesized music. It was like chip tunes. And yeah. So
cutscenes.
Yes. So, and then from one arcade game to two arcade games to 50 different kinds of arcade games. It blew my mind. It just blew my mind, and I watched every one of them. You know, there were ones with, you know, gun shooting ones, and there's like different ways to use the joystick.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember Street Fighter 1. There was the version where you have to like punch the button really hard. The harder you punch, it's like heavy punch. And if you tap it, you never seen that version?
No. To be honest, I never played Street Fighter 1 on arcade. I mean, I just Google it and play it on an emulator later, but it never reached. I'm not sure how many copies of that there are in Argentina, if one.
Yeah. Okay, so Street Fighter 1, I was the champion in Taipei. I went to the tournament and I played. I was good at it. What I didn't know was it was such a success. Capcom continued to make Street Fighter 2. And at that time, I believe I went to Silicon Valley. I joined Sony, and then I joined Electronic Arts. I worked on Madden Football as a lead programmer. And then I went to Capcom. And by the time I joined Capcom...
Yeah. How old were you when you went to Capcom?
25.
25, okay. Very young.
25. Yeah. Yeah. I was young. And before I joined Capcom, I already went to the Northern California Street Fighter tournaments a few times and failed. Got my ass kicked, you know, because you know, you see the pros. I really trained hard like an athlete, like a professional athlete on Street Fighters, and they slaughtered me on my first try. You know, little kids, little Vietnamese kids, you know, they had to like use the stool, you know, to reach the console. Yeah, kicked my ass and actually made a you know, laughing stock out of me.
Out of you.
Yeah. So yeah, I love the game with a passion. And as a programmer, I wanted to work on it. I wanted to participate in this great work. And so I didn't really care about salaries. I just wanted to work on Street Fighters.
Good.
Yeah. And, you know, it's one of those things that I oftentimes tell people, for men to have a dream, it's better if it's an unachievable dream, unattainable dream. Because being able to work on Street Fighters was my dream, the dream of my lifetime. And I fulfilled it when I was 27. So what the heck am I going to do for the rest of my life? And
what you did?
Well, you know, it's everything seems pale compared to that dream.
Yeah, to that moment when you got your hand on that thing.
Yeah, everything is just not as cool, not as exciting as that, because I romanticized that experience, and it was romantic and somewhat mystical. That whole experience of working at Capcom. And I think internally, I also made the experience mystical. And to other people, it was probably just a job. You know, it was just a job. It was a workplace that they go and they, you know, until they don't go. But for me, it was a religious experience. It was like Mecca, and everyone I met there was a guru, was a mentor to me. And I didn't find that ridiculous, to be honest with you. Like I was in that mood, and I was in that state, and I enjoyed every second of it. I mean, I laughed, I cried with my coworkers. We built games together. We watched games fail.
Which game? I mean, there are games from Capcom that never reached the daylight, that were canceled.
All the time.
So there are
all the time.
Who knows which crazy games we never see.
Yeah, exactly. So I worked on a football game. That's why they hired me. Mm-hmm. It was like 1920s American football, when they're wearing like a leather helmet.
Okay.
It's not the hard helmet like today. So it's like leather helmet. It's called Iron Man football. and it had a lot of breakthroughs, but like 80% into the game, they got cold feet and they canceled it. So
okay, but then you work
yeah.
up because you came from EA to Capcom, and you already worked
yes,
on the
Madden football, John Madden football, the best-selling video game of all time, every year.
It's like, well, because we don't play. I mean, in Latin America, we don't play much like football, which is I don't know what they call it, because there is no foot and ball involved in American
well,
football.
you do.
And they call soccer what is football.
Yes.
But anyways,
right. So it's American football.
Yeah, American football. Yeah. So it's not very popular for us, but I know that it's a huge title. I've sold like a lot of copies in worldwide, right? And then from there you went to Capcom. And why? I mean, where from Capcom? Where do you move to?
So I was at Capcom for 3 years.
Yeah.
And I went to Accolade, and it's probably not a famous company to you, but they were the company that made Jack Nicklaus golf game and also Test Drive. So Test Drive, more people know.
Yeah.
It was the #1 driving game in the US for a few years. I worked on the Test Drive off-road franchise. You know, we have Hummer in the game. You're driving in the mud, through the woods, through the water, crazy, jumping over the cliffs. So from sports game to fighting game to driving games, the recurring theme is action. So all the games I worked on were action games.
Okay, now, so we covered you have a lot of experience in a lot of companies, in a lot of game genres. So what do you think that is, I'm not sure if quintessential or really, really important to make a game fun or to make a game that works? What is like something that must be or should be there?
I think fun is a big word. Fun is a very big word, because fun is different. It's different things for different people. Yeah. So for some people, let's just say you have a Jenga tower, right? For some people, it's fun to put it up. For some people, it's fun to knock it down. So, right? Yeah. So in a way, there's no one game that will satisfy all. I mean, it's a dream.
Yeah, well, that's why we have like different demographic for different game from different demographic, right? So you like, okay, I'm making games toward 14 years old kids from USA.
Think about movies. Think about movies, right? So, there are all kinds of movies, and some are culturally relevant, some are not. And some are universally funny, some are not. So video games is the same way. So when you say fun, you have to realize that's a subjective word.
Yeah.
So you have to understand who your demographic is. So I would say,
but I don't want to say just fun, but I'm making what is something that a game should have or helps a lot that you think, okay, this it's like in general, because one of those could be like understanding the audience, for instance, but to make the game works. To work, right? Like as a product, to make it like appeal to people.
Hernan, I don't want to shy away from the word fun. I said it's a big word, but I'm not saying that word is meaningless. Okay. That word is meaningful, and we have to stay with that concept, because when a game is not fun, it is not a game.
Yeah,
I'm willing to, I guess, stick to that statement, because there are games out there that some angry game developers will call them addictive apps and not games, because you become addicted to them even while you're doing it. You know it's not fun, but you keep coming back like Pavlov's dogs. Like you would just habitually coming back and press the buttons, but it is no longer fun. You are a slave to that game. Now, let's not debate that, because some people think making money, making commercially successful games is enough. So let's not destroy or disagree with that. But I think fun is important. I think it's important to drive for making a fun software. And I think because even if that's your goal, you may not get it. You may not get there. Now, if you only think about, I want to have a game that's very addictive, retention is very good, and it monetizes very well, it makes a lot of money. Well, you may or may not get it. And it may not be fun. And if you start with a game that's not necessarily fun, you're going to have all kinds of trouble down the road. You're going to have trouble with retention. You're going to have trouble with monetizations.
Yeah, but I think there is some fun. I mean, if you are coming back for the game and you're addicted to a game, whatever being addicted to a game means, it's really great. But if you really like something and you come back, probably there is something, there is some dopamine there that is being released by your brain. So it is in some way kind of like, it is fun. Even if you don't, I mean, it's not the same fun that being like, like that's not necessary. There are horror games that people find them like really, it's entertaining. And it's not like they are like in a roller coaster, like yelling of happiness or joy. It's just the dread.
I mean, I think when we say fun, we don't necessarily mean funny. Like Resident Evil, it's not funny.
No.
But it's fun.
It is fun. You're killing zombies. That's sort of the fun, right? You're being hunted by a monster in other games. Or you're serving a mystery.
There are a lot of game theories revolving around what's fun, what's playful. That's another word. And I think there are some frameworks like you should not be personally threatened. Like you are in no physical danger, and you are somewhat relaxed. So I mean, this sounds ridiculous, but it's actually important to point it out that for a person to be entertained, or he cannot feel physical pain or threat. So I mean, your avatar in the game may die, and you may be scared. You may not want him to die. You may even pay your money to make sure he doesn't die. But you're personally not in danger.
The fun resides in that the monster catch you and you don't die really, but you were in that situation. You put yourself in that mindset of what will I do if a monster with big claws is chasing me? And the celebration, I think, is that you don't really die. You have like 3 more lives, and the real one.
Yes, I think that's endorphin release. Like that, and then I die. But, I'm not really dead. I still have 2 lives. I think that kind of release is endorphin. But in any case, I'm personally motivated by action games because I like to enjoy honing my skills and becoming better. And that's why I like shooting games, it's always a fun release for me. But I do see that the younger gamers today, they're not as engaging, or they're not they're lazier than the older gamers. So action games, regretfully, I think they are on the decline. There are less games that require operational skills. Like Street Fighters, like the way you play Street Fighters. That kind of skills.
I agree with you that it was really much more popular in the past, and I think that is because the offer that you have for games were much less reduced, and games should last more also. So since you have a game and you have to master it, and it should like take you time because they were more expensive. I remember when I was a kid and I just put a game on my Famicom and I played the game, and the game was really short because I won, and it was it. It was just 2 hours and that's it. And I was like, damn! But my $20 cost the game were like gone in 1 hour. And the thing is, like, now games are, so that's why I prefer games that were harder, because they were like taking more time and effort. And now you have like so many games. And I think that it's really cool that we have so many games, and for that matter, games cost were like really low. Yeah. Right now. So it's okay to just grab a game, play a bit, and if you don't like it, I don't care. It's just 20 cents or free. So in that sense, I think, I agree with you. But at the same time, the player base has grown a lot. And also there is a generation that still loves skills games. So maybe younger generations are like, since they are used to like have a lot of games like available. And we as developers also, we make the player like feel super welcome to the game, and hey, you're really good at this, because if we don't like help them out, they're like, okay, no, it's your fault that I'm bad at this, so I'm going to leave this game, and I'm going to leave you a bad review, or I'm not going to pay it, or I'm not going to play it anymore. So we try to like grab him and take this. This is really easy, and you are the best.
Now, I don't say skill games is the only game, because I don't believe that. And I think puzzle games are great because it exercises your mind. And I think games like Monument Valley, it's refreshing to your eyes, and it's refreshing to your mind, and it's got puzzle elements. And, I think this comes from storytelling. Monument Valley has a lot of epiphanies built in, because in really good stories, in really good novels, they always built in epiphanies. Like you see this going on, you see that going on, and then all of a sudden everything comes together. And you're like, yeah. And over 100 years ago, James Joyce, the Irish author, he really he studied the art of creating epiphanies. In fact, he would put a lot of mini epiphanies and use a big epiphany to like wrap them all together. And some video games do that, especially storytelling ones. So you solve little puzzles, and then in the end everything just comes together and everything makes sense.
And then your brain melts, and you say, because there is a satisfaction about you realizing what it was all about. And that's great.
Steve Jobs gave a speech at the Stanford University graduation, and I think you can find that on YouTube. There's many copies of that video, and he basically reflects everything back in his lifetime. And he said, I know why I dropped out of college. And I know why I got kicked out of Apple, because everything comes together. I know why I learned calligraphy when I was in art college. And he somehow saw that everything just weaved sort of back and forth together. And every failure in his life made sense to him now. And, he made that video probably when he knew his days are numbered on the earth. And he realized his entire life was a big plot, was a big plan, and everything made sense. And I think really great video games, or very good scripts in video games, also have similar themes, because we deeply desired our life makes sense.
Makes sense. Yeah, we as a human we look for sense, for meaning. All the time. We look for patterns. I think we're pattern finding. That's same thing that's why we play games. We like puzzle games, because in fact games are like have loops, right? And we try to make loops, and the player see a pattern and learn something, and then we change it so the player learns something new. My dog is attacking me right now. I have to open the door. Give me a second.
Sure.
There you go. Sorry.
That's all right. In an interview between Bill Moyer and Joseph Campbell, on PBS in the United States.
Yeah.
And Bill Moyer was a very famous journalist, and Joseph Campbell was the student of Carl Jung. And by the way, Campbell was the mentor to George Lucas to create Star Wars trilogy. And he's the author of Heroes of Thousand Faces. And in that interview, all of a sudden, Bill Moyer asked Joseph Campbell, what is the meaning of life? And Campbell said, there is no meaning to life. Life is just like grass in the lawn. It just keeps growing. Its cells have urges to replicate itself. You mow it down, it grows up. You mow it down, it grows up. There is no point. There is no meaning to life. And I remember I was in front of the TV and I couldn't stop my tears from pouring down my face because it was such a letdown. But somewhere deep inside, I agree with him. I knew he's telling the truth, but it's very unpleasant. And then he continued to say, all the meaning is in the process. From the moment you're born to the moment that you die, it's everything in between. So if you want to look for a grand finale, like, at the end of your life, you save the universe, come on. It's like, has that happened to anyone? Has that happened to any one of us that would save the world? And, not easily. I mean, I would say Armstrong is up there. But, yeah. And so we look for meanings. We look for meanings in life. And we look for meanings in games. In everything, in games, in everything we do. Can you imagine you play a game that the game has no point? Like you're gathering a lot of flowers and there's no use for them.
Well,
can you imagine?
Yeah, I can imagine. There are a lot of them and they suck. That's why people don't play them. I mean, that's a good point of something that a game should have. It's a meaning. Because if you are doing pointless stuff, I mean, if there's no focus on in which direction you're going.
And I think that's a better word than meaning, because I think meaning is a little bit philosophical. Yeah. Purpose, or purposeful, or sense of purpose is more relevant to game design. So why do you put a button there on the screen, or on the screen in the game? Why do you plant a tree there and not here? Why do you put a rock here and not there? And I remember, as an American game developer, artists, game designers, programmers, we just blah 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 blah. We populate the world, right? In fact, that's the word we use. We populate the map. We populate the level. We populate it. We populate the enemies on the map. But that word doesn't inspire purpose. So it was my mentor, Yoshiki Okamoto-san. He's the creator of Street Fighters. He told me, because I was making test drive, racing tracks. We were making racing tracks for a racing game. And I asked him, hey, can you teach me anything about, racing level design? He said, Monty, I've never made a racing game before, but the racing, the tracks, it's a story. And there's a beginning, there's a turning, and there's this ending. And if you put something there, you want that landmark to leave an impression to the player. So next time when he's like going around the loop in the back, he see that tree over there, and then there's a like hairpin turn right after that. So that tree will become sort of like a cue, visual cue, and it helps the players. The funny thing is, it's an unconscious association. So if you put something that sticks out, and then there's something special after that, then remember that. In fact, if you think about it, that's how many Japanese games are made. A lot of the shooting games, all the enemies come in the same formation. Every time you play the game, they come back in the same formation. Why? They want the players to memorize the pattern. So it's the players who have to adapt. Now, Americans, they like to put AI in the game, so the NPCs or the enemies will adapt to the players' behaviors, or worse, they randomize it, so it's different every time. So American games are in general, a little bit more difficult initially. And Japanese game have very, very humane, very mellow ramping up of game difficulties. And the best example is Mario Brothers. After how many seconds you see another pipe, after how many seconds you see a brick floating in the air, it's all calculated. So, and that would never change. You will never see a randomly generated map in Mario Brothers.
No, of course you don't.
You don't. The way they do it is they train the players to adapt to the game. So players get better. The game doesn't get better. But there are some games that we play. The games will adapt. I'm not saying that's bad or good. I'm just saying it's different.
Yeah, it's a technique that you should that you could use as a game developer to try to bring some behavior, because in the end what you try to do is bring some new behavior in your player, and sometimes you let things adapt to him because maybe he's losing too much, and then you got down the difficulty a bit so he doesn't feel what you want to do is he feels good, so we go back to behavior. But there is something that you mentioned there, that it was you have American developers and Japanese or Asian developers that's really different, distinct features. And do you see, because you're a specialist, I'm not sure if I'm using the word correct as a specialist, but I understand you have a really shit ton of experience on Chinese players and Asian players. So what's if there is any difference between players and between developers in China than in the rest of the world? If there is a difference that you can let's start with the players. What is the difference that you see?
Well, so players from generation to generation, they change.
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, that's reality.
Yeah.
And because of globalization, Steam is all over the world. Steam Store is, distributed all over the world. So it's App Store, so it's Google Play. So there is a unification of taste.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good if you happen to know what that is, and then there's some local flavored games. And I think that's great. I mean, think about movies. I really think there's a lot of similar situation or similar development with movies. I'm very positive there are Argentinian-made movies that can only be appreciated by Argentinians, right?
Yeah,
no, not so much.
Well, the thing is, because you're going to have a lot of local innuendos that otherwise you are not going to know. If you see people drinking mate, you're going to say, what kind of drugs are they taking? Or what they have a metal straw. It makes no sense. But there is that kind of but I mean, not always are universal things. But I understand what your point. I think
well, you know what? I can give you many examples of universally successful games.
Yeah.
So match 3 games. Think about it. It's quite universal. Its success is quite universal. Match 3, like Candy Crush, like Gardenscapes, like Toy Blast. Because there's not a whole lot of cultural stuff, cultural references in it. There's no tango, there's no,
no
American
chupacabras.
Cowboys. Yeah, chupacabras, yeah. And if they did, a lot of people won't get it, right? So they would miss the jokes. But the interaction is abstract. How you play in match 3, it's do you remember
geometry.
Remember Puzzle Bubble or Bubble Bubble? Puzzle Bubble.
Bubble. Yeah, the one with
Yeah, I went to. Yes, the guy. Yeah.
Bubble.
So I went to Tokyo Game Show in the 90s, and I was hanging out in the hotel lobby, and I was talking to my friends, and one of them did a musical game. I think it's called Rez, and he also later did Luminous. So he's like the godfather of all musical games in Japan. And I was chatting with him, and one guy walked by. He said, "Oh, hey, Monty, you know the creator of Puzzle Bubble?" I'm like, "Whoa!" So there was a guy who created that game, and And for me, he's crazy. Like, how can you imagine and fantasize a creature that didn't exist before you created it? And how did you come up with such abstract of interactions between pixels on the screen? How these bubbles, appear on the screen. Yeah, interact. And because I worked on American football game, and I worked on a fighting game, and real fight do happen in life, and real American football do happen in life. That doesn't require a whole lot of imaginations. We're simply adapting reality in a video game framework. And once in a while, we would do supernatural things because we want to see supernatural things in a video game.
Like
but some games like what would be like
Pac-Man?
Pac-Man is like that. Yeah, that's a good one.
Pac-Man is an abstraction, a total abstraction, right? Because they're...
Well, first of all, like, that thing doesn't appear in nature.
No,
it came from someone.
Yeah, definitely. But I think sometimes it's out of necessity, right? I mean, you make a game that is fun, but it's just geometry that is fun. It's like
yes,
and then you have to like come up with some idea. It's like you throw the arrow and then you paint the blank around it, and you say, "Oh yeah, well, it has to jump on turtles. Why? Because turtles are easy to draw. Okay, well now the guy jumps on turtles. Then it's followed by ghosts. Why? Because ghosts maybe they were easier to make than someone who moves arms and feet.
Yes,
and in this time you can also come with all kind of crazy abstractions or crazy ideas.
Yes.
They are not. It's not the first thing that came. It's just how did you paint a game or some form of puzzle that is fun, but it is really abstract. It's something that doesn't happen.
I think some individuals are just super creative, and to them, they probably already have those images in their mind for many years before they get an opportunity to put it in a digital form. But in other cases, I believe actually in many more cases, it came from teamwork. Sometimes magic happens when you're in a team where no idea is a bad idea. And the crazier the idea, the more approval you get from the team. And then it's kind of almost like a daring competition. It's like, well, why don't we do this? And what if we did that? And, so they keep, it's almost like topping each other off or keep daring each other. And then you have something that's just like, whoa, let's put that in the game. So I have had a lot of those magical moments, and I really think those are the moments to look for.
You're brainstorming, basically. You just sit with your team and talk, and
but there are different levels. Yes, but there are different levels, because when you're at a level where things just don't work, it's like it's not fun. You're losing players. You're losing their attentions. It's not fun. So first of all, you want to work on how do we grab their attentions? How do we make them engage? How do we make it fun? And then once you get there, it's kind of like, how do we make it out of the world? How do we make it crazy? How do we make it so I want to play, or my wife wants to play, or my kids want to play, or how everybody wants to play? And, so you cannot just jump from not able to make a fun game and go to, I want to make a game that people will remember 20 years from now. It doesn't happen like that. It just doesn't. When I licensed the game Monument Valley into China, one of the team leaders told me, Monty, we spent 1 year to decide what game we want to make. And once they decided what they're going to make, it took them a year to make Monument Valley. So it's a vision that took a year. And they probably tried a lot of things that didn't work. And then they thought of an idea, and then they realized, oh, okay, they can turn that into a gameplay. And it just happens that everybody loved it. And so it becomes part of our collective consciousness. You know, we talk about Monument Valley. You talk to another person who has played and finished Monument Valley. It's almost like you have a connection. It's like kindred spirit. Like, so it's not easy. It's like once in a while, all the planets align together. You have a dream team put together, and it happened.
Yeah, and talking about like global taste, it worked really well in China as well.
Oh yeah, it was a success. In fact, people who played Monument Valley think better of themselves. They think they're more cultural. They think they have taste. They think, for some reason, they feel superior to other players who play stupid games. I don't know why.
Well, you already say the stupid games to other games, so you're part of the demographic that feels better than the rest for playing Monument Valley there.
Hey, I play stupid games all the time.
Oh, yeah,
I play games. I play games until I was like, why am I playing this game? You know, it's like
it is your job, right? In part.
Yes, in part. But I have gotten addicted to stupid games. I've gotten addicted to stupid games because I'm just like a Pavlov's dog. I'm a human. Humans are animals, and we have conditional responses. So, you know, in case you or your audience doesn't know Pavlov's dog's experiment, there's a ring, and then there's food, there's saliva, coming and ring, saliva, food. Yeah, yes, ring, saliva, food, ring, saliva, food. After a while, you know, you don't need the food. You just have the ring, and then they will salivate. And we're the same way. Our phones go ding, you pick up the phone. Ding, you pick up the phone. How many people like me? You know, I need to, you know, how many people watch my post? You know, I need to like other people. And video games is definitely using that impulse in humans. And in fact, really good games take really advantage of this sort of human. You cannot control it. You cannot control it. You know, when I was in school, when I was a kid, I loved to play this prank on people, because when I realized, I guess, this human response, you know, I started thinking about pranks. So I would sneeze, you know, into like a tissue, and then this like my fucking disgusting shit in the tissue, right?
Yeah.
So I would toss it at my friend when he's not looking at me. I will call out his name when that piece of crap is 1 meter away from him. He would turn and see, and he will catch it he would catch it. He has no choice. He has to catch it. He will always catch it.
Man, I'm so glad that you don't play that kind of pranks anymore.
And I just realized they are reflexes.
Yeah.
You know, right? When you see it, you have to do it. You have to respond to it. Yeah, you will catch it. And it's the same way with video games. We have a lot of reflexes. And, you know, if you study them well, or if you understand yourself well, if you understand your own reflexes well, some of those reflexes are universal. Like it happens to many people, or every people. You know, like your point and click games. Sometimes there's something that's just there on the side of the road that's not natural. It's not supposed to be there. And you go there and you remove that rock, and there's something under the rock.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's an epiphany. And
well, yeah, I mean, definitely we as game developers, we use that kind of behavior of the player, and we also teach them over, well, it's the same as before. We teach them over and over and over and over the same. So they already expect, for instance, yellow things to be bad, and green things to give you health, and stuff like that. I mean, it became an universal, something that is universal. For instance, first-person shooters, you always are going to shoot with your mouse if you're working on PC. It's not like you're going to shoot with Q2 and 9. And there are controls. There's already things that are already well established, and the player expect them to be that way. That's sometimes when you have a really, or someone who wants to be really creative, there is a halt on creativity that you have to be aware of, because it's not like you can come with all kind of crazy ideas and the player is going to adapt. You also have to adapt to what the player expect and how he behave, and what are those reflexes that you were talking about, right?
I mean, the beautiful thing about video games is it's more than just visual art. So let's just say, let's do something creative. Let's have a purple rabbit. Okay, is that creative? That is creative. But is it fun? I don't know. What are you going to do with that purple rabbit? Right? Because it's a lot of the fun, a lot of the magic happens in the interaction. It doesn't just happen in a still image. It happens in the interaction. So how are you interacting with this purple rabbit? Are you the purple rabbit, or is he a boss that you're going to fight? So it sounds simple, but actually there's very, very deep magic and art in the interactivity, because the concept immersive or immersion. Some games go after that, and this is why the recent Unreal engines are becoming more and more and more photorealistic. Well, it's a chase, towards reality, and I guess there's nothing wrong with it. I just think there's more than just that. There's more than realism. But the point of realism is they try to capture immersiveness. They're trying to do ray tracing in 3D games to make it even more real, more realistic. So when you look at a video game, you cannot tell if that's a movie or because it's so believable. Yeah, or a video game because it's so believable.
I hear that since PlayStation 1. This 3D is so good. You cannot see the difference between the movie and the video game. And that thing said in every video game generation, and it's going to be said in every video game generation until it's reality. I hope at some point we're going to achieve it. But of course, we're working toward realism because that drives immersion, and also there is like a player base that loves the more real it looks, the better. And there are also other people that prefer to be more like geometrical, or they are still playing 2D games that they are nothing to do with reality. But there is a big audience that want their computer or their console to melt on fire because it's processing so many things at the same time, and it looks like the more, as you say, realistic.
Well, look, sometimes it just needs to be symbolic. So in the old days, 8-bit, with the 8-bit hardware, they didn't have enough memory. So flames, they actually just cycle through the palette and, make it look like flame. And as long as you can get the point across, that's enough. Old games like King's Quest,
but no matter how realist your game is, the user interface doesn't happen in real life. You don't have a health meter around, right? Or a cross mark.
Yeah, I don't think the chase is pointless, but I do think it's a ever approaching sort of endeavor. Like you will never get there. Like I don't think we will ever get there, because even if you get so close, like you're doing 8K, super fast, 120 frames per second, everything is photorealistic. You're looking at a screen.
Yeah.
And if you're doing VR, you're looking at a screen. You're looking at two screens. I mean, you can.
You're looking at a screen. If you're doing VR, you're looking at two screens. That's so much better.
And even if one day they can shoot laser beams into your retina, and you're wearing some kind of kinetic suit, you still know this is not real.
Yeah.
I mean, you may want to believe it's real, and sometimes that's enough.
Yeah, there are so many different things that you have to fool to believe that you are in a real thing. I mean, it's not just the visuals. It's also the smell, the taste, how do you feel when you move, that you really move, whatever. There are a lot of stuff. And we are just moving towards looking better. So it's a long road ahead. But
I don't know if you ever went to the movie theaters in the 70s.
No, I wasn't born in the 70s.
Okay. So they made movies with smells, and I think back then it's called smell-o-vision. So basically, everyone got a card, and then an old lady will be powder her face, and they'll tell you, okay, scratch number 7. You scratch it, and you smell old lady's perfume, and so that's old technology. Now
you have to. We're watching the movie, checking if you don't scratch the wrong thing, and suddenly the old lady smell like moss.
Yes. So, and then later people try to do that over the internet, and then there's 4D movies where they blow wind in your face, they shake your seats, they have surround sound. But the point is, the audience have to want to believe. Yeah. If the audience is having a cynical attitude, it's just going to laugh at all the attempts, right? So the audience, they have to want to be convinced. So you could have a 8-bit pixel look game with 8-bit chiptune music. But if they want to get into it, they want to hear what's the story you're trying to tell.
Yeah.
Then that's enough. Then that's enough. And I think the chase for better graphics, it's never ending. Nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying it could be futile, and it's very expensive. The most expensive part of video game production, it's in the visual. Unfortunately, it's in the visual. It has always been in the visual.
Well, yeah, it depends on the genre that you're making, but because if you're making like a mobile,
if it's on
the game that is really
I guess I was
heavy.
I guess I was only referring to video games.
Consoles.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to mobile and let's go back to the topic of localization.
Okay.
I will, because when we were talking about the difference between the Chinese market and the rest of the world, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, you tell me, in this new generation, we have like a universal taste for stuff. And when I was in China there, it looks, I mean, it was in Europe, it was in USA, but it wasn't like something crazy and wild and so different from the rest of the world. From me, that I'm from Argentina, that is exactly the opposite side in the two axes of the world of difference.
Yeah.
I mean, people, they say hi in different language, but you have burgers, you have coffee, you have clothes that are similar. Most of the people are like dressed like people all over the world. So we have like kind of like a similar taste, but there are differences, right? And entering China, it's like, oh, suddenly your picture appears, sexy. Oh, there you are again.
It's because, hold on. It is because it's prompting me that I'm about to run out of battery. So let me address that. Okay.
There you go, sir.
Yeah, I think this should help.
Cool.
I hope.
No, you look exactly as before.
Okay. Well, great.
As I was saying, how do you enter the Chinese market? Because I know that it's not like you just walk through the door, but I have a game and I want to put it anywhere. Which is the...
Okay, so if we want to be analytical about game market, we want to be analytical about what kind of games we want to make for what market, then we have to have some research tools. We cannot just, ask friends. It's not that simple. So I'm very big on researching, and I'm very big on getting the numbers, especially on mobile. The numbers on app stores and the data on Google Play, you can get them. I mean, you can at least get ranking charts of different markets for free. I'm not sure where, but a lot of people in the industry, they use App Annie. For some small developers, they may find that expensive, but I think even free accounts will give you some access. I think ranking charts probably doesn't cost too much. And, it's not that difficult to get foreign accounts on your iPhone or on your Google Play. It may be a little bit more tricky with Google Play, but at least if you know what the name is, you can go to YouTube and type in those names and you can watch the video of those games. And I think it's important to watch the ranking charts and look at the top downloads and the top grossing and watch what's popular now in those target markets. And you obviously will see games with strong cultural influence. Like Chinese games, you're going to see Three Kingdoms, you're going to see Westward Journey, Monkey King. These are ancient Chinese mythologies. Or you may see historical reference, you may see martial arts, Chinese Kung Fu stuff. And those are not that easily for foreigners to enter, just because those subjects are potentially very deep. So I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's harder.
Yeah,
it's harder. Just like if I want to make an Argentinian tango game, I will be a very bad candidate to do that because I would know what's good and what's bad and how to turn that into a gameplay. As an example, or if I want to use Japanese kendo or Japanese martial arts, I will be a terrible person to design that game. So, but you will see universal themed games on the top ranking charts. If not top 10, then maybe top 20. You will see them. You will see them for sure. I guarantee you will see them. And those are clues that, hey, those games got a lot of downloads and those games got a lot of revenue. And you'll be blown away when you see the numbers, of top grossing games in China. We're talking about like millions of dollars a week. So obviously, those games are deep with meta games, deep with gameplay, deep with how they entice the players into the game and forming habits. So I would say top 10 is really hard to get in as a smaller team or smaller studio.
It's a dream to be top 10, I guess.
Because some of those games are made by over 100 people per game.
Let's forget about the top. Let's say just entering and doing fine.
Yeah.
If I have a game,
okay,
and I say this may be work in China, it just have to be like a regular game with a universal theme.
I would say even genres, you have to be picky. Like like match 3 works, but just plain match 3 doesn't work anymore. I mean, simple match 3 games like original Candy Crush back in 2014 may work. But today, the kind of match 3, it involves decorating your garden, there's a story, there's a plot, and you want to find out what's the rest of the story, and you continue to play match 3. And some hidden object games are becoming popular slowly in China. Again, most hidden object games have a story, and the story needs to be somewhat enticing.
And has to be on Chinese too.
Of course, it has to be in Chinese.
there is something to consider if you're not from China.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to theme, so genre is how you play the game. Yeah. It's what type of games. But theme is just basically the backdrop of the story. Yeah. So, if you ask me, are pirates popular in China? Maybe. The answer is maybe. Is science fiction popular in China? Not as popular as pirates. Is Greek mythology popular in China? Not so much. So fantasy, like Lord of the Rings stuff, that doesn't belong to any race on Earth. It's because it's fantasy. That tend to work better in China. That's why Final Fantasy did well in China, because it's not culturally relevant.
Yeah, it's just a lot of crazy stuff going on.
Yeah, shooting guns and using swords and knives
and magic.
That's universal. Yeah, magic. That's somewhat universal.
Yeah, but Zeus, that's something more specific.
Yes, survival games, for some reason, they are becoming increasingly popular.
Aren't there forbidden, like games with blood and gore and stuff like that?
Oh yeah. So sorry, I take that for granted. So violence, sex, zombies are not welcome in China, because the Chinese political party is, they practice atheism. Mm-hmm. So supernatural stuff, that's like superstitious. And it's hard to tell what's superstitious and what's not. So they don't like zombies because zombies are dead. But if you say these are like
robot zombies,
yeah, that should be fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So as long as you don't go out of your way and create ghosts and stuff. But for some reason, aliens are okay, because aliens are not supernatural. They're science fiction-ish.
Okay, yeah, but
so
you can't kill aliens, or you cannot kill aliens?
Aliens are fine.
Okay.
You can kill them. Yeah, but no blood. No red blood. Green blood, blue blood are fine.
Okay. So if the aliens have green blood, they are okay. Cool.
Yes. In the US, when we were making first-person shooting games, we had a rule that says zombies are okay, Nazis are okay, and aliens are okay. The exception is Nazis are not okay in Germany, and I don't think Nazis are okay in China. I could be wrong on that, but that's a touchy subject. But in general, aliens are fine.
Okay. So if you want to make a game that can be played by anywhere around the world, aliens with green blood.
Yes, or fantasy stuff.
Or fantasy stuff, yeah. But with no blood at all.
Yes.
or maybe they also have green blood, I don't know.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. There is something else that you want to talk about that I should ask you and I didn't?
I believe in following your passion. So I remember I was in Thailand, in Bangkok, giving a speech, and there was a studio there. They said, we are going after Chinese market. we want to make games that's popular in China. So I was very curious. I asked the guy, well, are you a Chinese? He says, no. I said, well, why don't you make games for Thai people? He said, the market is too small. I said, yeah, but there are a lot of Chinese game designers, game developers making games for Chinese market. And you will be competing with them. So what will be your advantage? So, I think that's something that we need to also think about. So as a foreigner or foreign company or foreign team, you want to make content in Chinese market and want to compete with Chinese content. You probably don't want to sort of beat them at the games that are really good at. You probably need to invent your own thing. So, if you're good at shooting games, make shooting games. Don't go out of your way to make something to please people that you don't know, because you don't know what they like, you don't know what they don't like, and it becomes a double guessing game. And you may end up, you have to know your target demographic. You have to know your target audience. And if you don't know your target audience very well, it's very likely that you're going to fail. Yeah. So I would say stick with what you know, pivot around what you know, and pivot around where your passion is at, and perhaps draw a bigger circle and overlap that market. But don't give up your pivot. Don't give up like, since martial arts is popular in China, I'm going to make a martial arts game. But if you're not passionate at it and you're not really an expert in it, the likelihood of you being successful at it is low, very low.
Yeah, or trying to adapt your game about robots suddenly about Chinese kung fu, it's not going to work. It's better to do your thing that that you feel comfortable with, and then for an audience that of course you have to do something for an audience. You should never do something without someone playing it in your mind. But if you don't know you'll
be surprised how much work the Japanese developer put in when they studied martial arts. For Street Fighters, for Virtual Fighters, they actually went to different locations. They studied a lot of books and watched a lot of videos, and they studied different martial arts, to design those characters and put them in the game. I do think some of their understandings are very superficial, but they did try their best to understand. There
was a lot, as you said, there's a lot of work involved on knowing that better.
Yeah. Like, no women dress like Chun-Li anymore. Like the female character in Street Fighters.
Unless they're cosplaying.
Yes, unless they're cosplaying. But, they adapt a style that's somewhat stereotypical of what Chinese girl could look like, and what a Russian wrestler could look like, or American boxer could look like. It's stereotypical, but that's fine.
Too bad for Brazil, because I've been in Brazil, they don't look like Blanca. It's not the stereotypical Brazilian.
Yes. That's why then when they created that movie was not a success.
No, the movie
was a mess.
It was a mess. Yeah. Terrible. Ban that movie. They missed the whole target. Why they make the movie about Guile? Everyone loves Ryu or Ken. But anyways.
Yes.
I was about to say it was an age when video games movies were bad, but I think video games movies are still terrible. I mean, they for some reason they don't know how to adapt it. I mean, the Resident Evil saga is like whatever. I mean, it has nothing to do with the games.
Yes, and I think at some point, at some point the movies outsold the video games, because I think the directors decided the movie had to stand on its own. So they started relying on their own scripts, relying on their own stars, and the movies did really well. I have to say, the Resident Evil series, the movies did really well, and you're right.
Yeah, they made 8 because they were a success, of course. I mean, they get money.
Yes.
They give you money. Otherwise, you don't do 8 movies.
Yes. So you're lucky you didn't watch Mortal Kombat, the movie. That was worse.
You
did watch it.
Of course.
That was horrible. That's worse than Street Fighter, the movie. You liked it?
No, sir. I disagree with you. It's much better. I mean, I prefer.
Wow.
Goro is well made. I mean, I understand that it doesn't focus on Scorpion and Sub-Zero. That was what I was expecting when I was a kid. But I prefer. It was much more action-packed and made more sense than the other with that Bison with Bisonopolis, and it was so cringy. And anyways, I was a kid, and I was happy that it existed. I prefer Mortal Kombat.
Cool.
I'm with you, Lucan. In the movies, I know you work on a Street Fighter, so you are going to like more the movie of Street Fighter, but
yes,
but I like the movie better. I mean, I prefer Street Fighter on games, but I prefer Mortal Kombat on the movie. But then there is Street Fighter the anime that is really good. Do you know? I mean, because you were working there, maybe you know that. But you know who made the game? I mean, there is a Street Fighter, the movie, the game. I mean, there's a game, right? Street Fighter.
Yes.
They made a movie of the game, and then they made a game out of the movie of the game. So there is like a photorealistic game with pictures of Van Damme. Kind of like Mortal Kombat?
I don't think I ever saw that.
Oh, I'm going to show it to you.
Okay.
It's terrible. But really, really bad. You should check it out.
I would imagine that would be bad. Wait, I think a very interesting one was Street Fighter, Marvel versus Street Fighters.
Man, that is one of the best games, fighting games that I played. I love that arcade. I really like Marvel vs. Capcom. I think it's amazing. I love the previous one. It's Marvel Superheroes versus Street Fighter. That was really, really good. I used to play that on the movies. There was in the cinema of my city. They have this arcade, and I used to spend a lot of money trying to beat him.
Is that the one that with tag team you get to pick two guys?
Yeah, you can change.
They added a lot more depth in that gameplay because of the tag team. Yeah, and they have like the superpowers. Wolverine could regenerate.
Wolverine, Wolverine could regenerate. Much wheel playing. Yeah, that was so cool. I mean, I think that it was a really, really, really good game, and I really missed that they made just 2 of those on 2D. Then they changed to 3D, and I think they lost the charm. 3D, it's not well made. I mean, I don't like fighting games that are 3D, unless the last Guilty Gear, because they emulate really, really good the 2D. They use 3D, but in a way that it looks like 2D, and it looks like gorgeous, and they can do a lot of stuff that is really good, but I guess it's super expensive to do that.
It's expensive, and it took them a lot of trial and error before they got it right. There was a game called Star Gladiator, and that was supposed to be Street Fighter 4 or 3. And when they finished the game, they didn't think it was good enough. So they did not give, it's an internal project. They did not give it Street Fighter IP. They just call it Star Gladiator. And it wasn't, it wasn't bad. It was a quality game, but they insisted the Street Fighter gameplay has to have 60 frames per second. And back then on PlayStation 1, you know, doing 3D graphics and going 60 frames per second was hard. If you're good, you can probably get 30 frames per second, and they just don't think you can get all the combo moves out at 30 hertz. So they did not give it that IP. And then Street Fighter 3 took off. Basically, the programmers hijacked that game, and they put in counterattack in Street Fighter 3. And, you know, as you probably know, Street Fighter 2 was a very unforgiving game. Basically, if you're not good, you're going to get slaughtered. You're not going to get lucky. With Tekken, you can bash the buttons, you can get lucky.
Yeah.
There's no getting lucky with Street Fighters. If you encounter someone good, you know, he can probably get away with perfect blood. Like, you can't even touch the guy. Street Fighter 3, they made it worse. So, like, if you encounter a master who's good, you attack him, he will attack it back, and he lose no blood. But, you know, in the past, when you attack and he blocks, you will lose some blood. So Street Fighter 3 actually was not successful commercially, and the game designers were not happy. They felt that the game programmers hijacked the project. So in the following Street Fighters, they took a lot more years to wait for the hardware to catch up, and also to make everything great again.
Yeah,
it was a lot of work. Yeah, the franchise became a legacy, so they cannot damage that legacy in any way.
I hope they go back to 2D, or at least to simulating 2D as other games are making, because I think that's the way. That's the way it started, and that's the way it should look. That for me, that's what I think.
Yeah,
totally subjective opinion on
I think that will be tough. The reason is because you know, again, it's one of those times when all the planets aligned. They had one of the best artists in Japan at the time, Yasuda-san, and he was so good that he actually published a sort of a illustration book. It's called The Art of Capcom, and you will see his art in Street Fighter 3. If you watch Street Fighter 3, the art is just amazing.
It's beautiful.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It is beautiful. Yeah, so he redesigned all of the characters from Street Fighter 1 in Street Fighter 2, and he continued to create them. And you really see everything coming together in Street Fighter 3. So it was basically the last, I guess, masterpiece by him, and it's all him. And so back then, he would do the illustration, color will be done by other people, and then, you know, later on, even when they made the 3D version, they always start from illustration. Yeah, and then go to 3D model, and they have to make sure that 2D looks like the original illustration. Yeah. And that's why you got that impression. Although it's 3D, it still has the feeling of 2D. It's because they almost go frame by frame, you know, like, you know, from the side.
It doesn't do the slow punch that Virtua Fighter does. Virtua Fighter is like the punch go all the way. It's not just one frame and there it is.
Yes.
But yeah, it's still too 3D for me. Well, I think we should like quote it here, because we are like, I don't know how many hours we already. I think it's going to be 1 hour on something. But it was super cool to talk with you and see you. Because this year, I think this year we're just going to look ourselves just through Zoom call and won't be able to participate in any event together. But thanks a lot for your time to be here.
Thank you for the interview.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. And we want to give a last message now.
Yes? No,
I don't know. Want to say something? Yeah, a last message to people from Argentina that love you and probably is watching you, and for people that are listening to this and went through my terrible English in this interview.
I think it's a privilege to work in game industry, and if you're in it, you're blessed. And if you're thinking about getting into it, just remember it's an industry of passion and it's labor of love. You can make a living in the industry, but that's not primary. You have to be fulfilled doing this, and if you persist, then the money will come. Money will come when you put your heart and soul in it. And but if you try to chase money, it becomes a weird game.
You're not going to get any of those.
Possibly, yes. All right.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot, Monty, and see you. Well, see you in messages, man. We can watch something later. Okay. So
all right.
I'm going to finish the call and now.
All right.
All right.